I didn't believe in cursed places until the night. I nearly drowned in a swimming pool that had been empty for years. The house sat at the end of a quiet street, just outside a small coastal town in England. The kind of place where nothing seemed out of place, except that one abandoned property with boarded windows and a rusted gate hanging slightly open. My friend Daniel dared me to go inside and record a short video for my channel. I was supposed to walk in, look around, and leave. But the moment I stepped through the gate, something felt wrong, like the air was heavier and cold pressing down on my chest. The backyard was overgrown, grass reaching up to my knees, and there it was. The pool, it was massive, Olympic-sized, but completely dry. Cracked tiles lined at the bottom, and dead leaves had gathered in dark corners, like something had dragged them there intentionally. I remembered laughing nervously into the camera, making a joke about how it looked like the perfect place for a horror movie scene. That laugh didn't last long. As I got closer, I heard something just like a faint splash. I froze there, and it came again. A very clear and unmistakable sound of water moving, but the pool was empty. I leaned over the edge and pointed my flashlight into the pool. For a second, everything looked normal, just the dry and cracked concrete. Then the beam flickered, just once, and I swear I saw water ripple across the bottom like a reflection. When the light steadied, it was gone. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around quickly, heart pounding, expecting Daniel messing with me, but no one was there. The yard was still, silent, the gate unmoving. I even called out, trying to sound braver than I felt, but my voice echoed back at me in a way that didn't sound right, like it came from somewhere deeper than the yard. Then came the first real jump, the sound of a body hitting water, loud and violent. Right behind me, I spun around instantly, nearly dropping the camera. I saw the pool, completely full of dark, still water that hadn't been there a second ago. My breath caught in my throat. The surface was perfectly calm, like glass, reflecting the gray sky above. I stepped back, shaking my head, trying to convince myself I was imagining things. But then the surface broke, and a hand shot up from the water. I stumbled backward, nearly falling. The hand thrashed violently, fingers clawing at the air, followed by a head forcing its way up. A woman, her face pale and swollen, eyes wide with panic. She looked directly at me, said, "Help me." Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. I dropped the camera and rushed forward instead, lying flat on the edge and reaching out. "Grab my hand," I shouted. She reached up. Her grip was ice cold, impossibly strong. The moment our hands touched, her expression changed. She smiled. Before I could react, she pulled me with terrifying force. I plunged into the water. It was freezing, knocking the breath out of me instantly. I kicked upward, but something grabbed my ankle and pulled me down. I thrashed, trying to break free, but the water felt thick. I realized then this wasn't just a pool, it was a trap. I panicked and looked up. The surface seemed far away, distorted, like I was much deeper than the pool should allow. My lungs burned. I kicked harder, ignoring the hands brushing against me. Then suddenly one hand grabbed my wrist. I turned, expecting to see the same woman, but this face was different. A man, eyes hollow, mouth wide open, as if screaming silently. More hands reached from behind him. They weren't trying to pull me down anymore. They were trying to keep me there. That's when I remembered something crucial. Pools have drains. If this thing was mimicking a pool, maybe it followed the same structure. I twisted my body and forced myself downward instead of up. Then I saw a circular shape at the bottom. It was the drain. The hand starts tightening, dragging me sideways. But I kicked with everything I had. Reaching forward, my fingers brushed against the metal grate and it felt loose. With the last of my strength I pulled, and the grate shifted. And suddenly, everything changed. The water spiraled downward. The hands released me instantly. The figures vanishing into the dark current, I was sucked toward the opening, spinning and disoriented until I hit the concrete. I gasped, coughing violently, air flooding back into my lungs. The pool was empty again, completely dry, and no one was there. I lay there for several minutes, shaking, trying to process what had just happened. My clothes were dry, not heaven damp. The camera lay a few feet away, still recording. I grabbed it with trembling hands and turned it toward the pool. I climbed out slowly, every movement careful, half expecting something to grab me again, but nothing did. The yard was exactly as I'd first seen it. I didn't stop moving until I was back on the street. When I finally reviewed the footage later, my blood ran cold. The video showed me standing by an empty pool, talking normally. Then, without warning, I screamed and threw myself forward into nothing. From the camera's perspective, I was thrashing on dry concrete, clawing at the ground, screaming for air. And right before the video cut off, just for a single frame, the pool was full, with dozens of faces staring right at the lens. After that day, I never found that footage again in my camera. It vanished like it was never there. We moved into the house on a gray Saturday morning, the kind of weather that makes everything look slightly washed out. Me, my younger sister Emily, and my older brother Ryan. Our parents had stayed behind in the city for work, so for a few months it was only the three of us, in a quiet house. At first, it felt like freedom. There was no traffic noise, no neighbors shouting, just endless rooms and echoing silence. But from the moment I stepped inside, I noticed one thing that didn't fit. The upstairs hallway had a single wall between my room and the bathroom that felt off. It wasn't visibly damaged or strange in design, but whenever I stood near it, the air felt heavier, as if sound struggled to pass through it. Even light seemed duller there, like the surface absorbed more than it reflected. The first night, I woke up to a sound I could not immediately understand. It was breathing, slow and uneven. That sound seemed to be coming from inside that wall. I remember sitting up in bed, convinced at first it was just my imagination adjusting to a new place. But then came the sound of scratching. It was not random or scattered, but controlled and moving in a straight upward line, as if something inside was eager to escape. I got out of bed and pressed my ear close to the wall, and that was when I heard it clearly for the first time. That was whispered, that saying, "I'm here." I stumbled back so quickly. I knocked over my bedside lamp, and the moment it hit the floor, the sound inside the wall stopped completely, leaving a silence so sharp it felt like pressure in my ears. The next morning, I told my sibling what happened to me last night, and Emily just laughed nervously and said, "I was probably adjusting to the new house." But Ryan didn't laugh. He just looked at the wall for a long time without speaking. That evening, Emily decided to test me by leaving her phone recording in the hallway, pointed directly at the wall while we all went to bed. She said she wanted proof. I was either right or completely losing it. None of us expected anything to happen so quickly. Around 2 a.m., the footage showed the hallway completely still at first. Then, very slowly, the wall began to bulge outward, as if something was pressing against it from the inside with increasing force. Fine cracks started to appear across the surface, like spreading veins. I remember watching it later and feeling my stomach tighten because the movement was too deliberate to be natural. Then the camera picked up a sound. It was our breathing. All three of us, perfectly synchronized, even though we were in separate rooms. At 2:00 a handprint formed on the inside of the wall from nowhere, fingers stretching outward before slipping back into the surface as if it had never existed. After that night, things escalated quickly. I started noticing that whenever I walked past the wall, my reflection in the hallway mirror reacted half a second late, like the image was thinking before copying me. Emily began waking up with faint scratches on her arms, arranged in straight vertical lines, always fresh, always painless. but unmistakably real. Ryan refused to talk about it much, but I caught him once, standing in front of the wall with his hand raised, and I saw something that made my skin go cold. His reflection was raising its hand first, smiling before he did. By the fifth night, sleep felt impossible. Doors began to creak open and shut on their own. Footsteps echoed in empty parts of the house, and sometimes I heard conversations repeating from earlier in the day, played back through the walls like recordings stuck in the structure. But everything always centered on that one wall. It was as if the rest of the house was just background noise, and the wall was the only thing truly awake. The breaking point came just after midnight. I woke to Emily screaming from the hallway. When I ran out, I saw her standing frozen and staring at the wall. The surface was shaking, not cracking outward, but inward, like something inside was pulling the house toward it. Ryan was already there, pale and silent, watching as the lights flickered violently overhead. Then the wall began to speak. It didn't use words at first, just layered voices, all of ours, overlapping, repeating conversations we had already had, but distorted, delayed, wrong in timing. Emily grabbed my arm so tightly I could feel her nails digging into my skin, whispering that it knew our names before we spoke them. That night, I made a decision. I went to the garage and came back with a hammer and a crowbar. Ryan and Emily followed me upstairs without saying a word, and the moment we stepped into the hallway and the air changed, it became dense. The wall began to thump from the inside, as if responding. When I raised the hammer, the first strike barely left a mark. The second strike made the hallway lights explode above us, plunging everything into darkness. Emily screamed, and the sound of something slamming from inside the wall echoed back immediately. As if reacting. Every strike after that felt harder, like the wall was actively resisting us. The crowbar bent slightly in my hands when I tried to pry open a crack. Ryan helped me hold it steady while Emily cried behind us, saying she could feel something pressing against her thoughts, repeating her name from inside her own head. The plaster began to heal between impacts, closing cracks almost instantly, as if time itself inside it was moving differently. At one point, I swear I felt something grab my wrist from the other side, pulling inward with enough force to make me lose balance, but we didn't stop. We kept hitting it, again and again, until finally the surface gave way with a sound like breaking bone and collapsing air. A ruse of cold, unnatural wind burst through the opening, but the resistance didn't stop even then. Whatever was inside pushed back, trying to seal itself again, trying to undo what we had done. Emily and Ryan held the edges open while I forced the crowbar deeper, widening the gap as the pressure increased until it felt like my arms were being pulled into something vast and unseen. And then, suddenly, it stopped. The wall collapsed inward completely, leaving only exposed structure and broken remnants of what it had been hiding. The silence that followed was just empty air. When morning came, the house felt different, like something heavy had finally been removed. We never rebuilt that wall. We left it open, unable to forget what we had pulled out of it. And even now, sometimes at night, I still stand in that hallway and feel the faintest trace of breath against my ear. Not coming from the wall anymore, but from somewhere just behind where it used to be. It wasn't some remote cabin or a crumbling mansion either. Just a normal two-story place in a quiet suburban neighborhood. I moved into the house last October, right when the weather started turning cold and the nights came faster than I was ready for. The kind of street where people put out pumpkins in the fall and leave their porch lights on. I was renting alone for the first time after a breakup, and I needed something quick. The place was cheap, suspiciously cheap in hindsight, but I didn't question it too much. The landlord said the previous tenants left suddenly due to a job relocation, which sounded normal enough. The house itself was clean, freshly painted, and empty in that hollow way that makes your footsteps echo more than they should. The first couple of nights were fine. On the third night, I noticed something small. I had left the hallway light on upstairs because I hate complete darkness, and when I woke up around 2 o'clock it was off. I distinctly remembered leaving it on. I even checked the bulb the next morning thinking it had blown, but it worked perfectly. I brushed it off as forgetfulness. Moving is stressful, and my brain was probably just fried. That explanation worked until the sound started. It wasn't anything dramatic at first, just soft noises like wood settling or faint creaks from upstairs while I was in the living room. Old houses do that, I told myself. But this place wasn't that old, and the creaks didn't. To feel random, they came in patterns, like slow, deliberate steps moving across the floor above me. The first time it really scared me, I was watching TV late at night. The house was completely still, and then I heard it clearly. A single, heavy footstep directly above me. I muted the TV and sat there, holding my breath. The footsteps stopped immediately. That silence felt worse than the noise. I grabbed a kitchen knife, which in retrospect wouldn't have done much, and slowly made my way upstairs. Every light was off. Every room was empty. I checked closets, under the bed, even the bathroom shower curtain. I told myself it had to be something structural, some weird echo or expansion noise that just sounded human, but I didn't sleep much that night. Over the next week, things escalated. Doors I knew I had closed would be slightly ajar. My dog, who had been completely comfortable at first, started refusing to go upstairs altogether. He'd stand at the bottom of the staircase, whining and staring up into the darkness like he was watching something I couldn't see. The first real jump scare happened about 10 days in. I was brushing my teeth in the upstairs bathroom, staring at my reflection, trying not to think about the noises. The mirror was slightly fogged from the hot water, but I could still see myself clearly. I leaned forward to rinse my mouth, and when I looked back up, I swear there was something behind me. It wasn't fully formed, more like a darker shape in the mirror, just over my shoulder. I spun around immediately, heart slamming against my ribs. I stood there for a long time, listening, trying to convince myself it was just my eyes playing tricks on me. That's what I told myself. But when I turned back to the mirror, the fog had shifted in a way that made it look like something had just moved through it, like a smear, at shoulder height, as if someone had been standing there seconds ago. I stopped using that bathroom after that. The worst night came a few days later, and I still get chills thinking about it. I'd finally managed to fall asleep on the couch downstairs, with the TV on for background noise. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up because the TV had cut out to a black screen. The room was completely dark, except for the faint glow of the standby light. At first, I thought the power had gone out. But then, right beside the couch, I heard the fabric shift, like weight pressing down on the cushion next to me, like someone was sitting there. And then, right as I locked my eyes on it, the indentation deepened further, like whatever it was leaned closer. I bolted up so fast I nearly tripped over myself, scrambling for the light switch. When the lights flicked on, the couch was empty again. No indentation, but my dog was now standing in the corner of the room, growling at the couch, his fur standing on end. That was the moment. I knew something was seriously wrong. I didn't sleep in the house after that. I grabbed a few things and stayed at a friend's place. I went back during the day to pack more of my stuff. I went upstairs to grab clothes from the bedroom, trying to ignore the uneasy feeling creeping back in. As I was packing, I heard something behind me, like someone called, "Hey." It was faint, barely audible, but I froze, every muscle locking up. I spun around instantly. No one was there, but the bedroom door, which I had left wide open, was now slowly swinging shut. I didn't stay another second. I left everything else behind and got out of the house as fast as I could. I didn't go back. I didn't try to explain it to the landlord beyond saying I was leaving early. He didn't argue. That, more than anything, felt wrong. The worst part is the feeling I had in that house. like I was never alone, even when everything looked empty, like something was always just out of sight, waiting for me to notice it.